Hello and welcome to the last episode of this second season of How Could We, a podcast by EIT Climate-KIC where we explore what a just, beautiful and climate-resilient future could look like. I am Anne-Sophie Garrigou, your host on this podcast, and in this season we focused on the new European Bauhaus, or NEB, a key initiative from the European Union's landmark Green Deal which aims to reach climate neutrality by 2050. This series has focused on projects selected by the NEB initiative. We've already talked to Annabella in Romania as well as Blanca and Raquel in Spain. And today we're heading to the south of France.
For me, a beautiful, just climate-resilient future looks like the world I knew when I was quite young. With my grandparents, they managed things in a very responsible way. The resources of their surroundings, for example water, were managed responsibly. They had their own garden and a different approach on what is comfort, but they were so happy.
That was Mathilde Rubinstein, Deputy Director of La Citadelle de Marseille, an association that manages the Fort d'Entrecasteaux, a military fort that was given by the French army to the city of Marseille in 2011. Mathilde and her colleagues have been working to preserve the site and are now in the process of opening it up to the public. Mathilde is involved in the Remade Space project, which helps restore heritage buildings by removing pollution through nature-based solutions. In the Citadelle's case, pollution was discovered in its soils following a lab analysis. So in this episode, she talks about the importance of seeing soil as a living heritage and how Remade Space brings together diverse groups of people, including scientists and artists and citizens, to think about nature-based solutions. She also talks about the plans to open up the Citadel to the public in the near future. Hello Mathilde, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, Anne-Sophie, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Fine.
So today we're going to talk about Remade Space, a project based in the La Citadelle de Marseille. It's a heritage building in the city center, and that building used to be a military base. It's currently closed to the public. So originally you wanted to turn the building's green space into a urban farm, but you came across some problems. Could you explain what happened and what you've decided to do instead?
Yes, it's located in the very center of Marseille, in a classified area, which is basically the old harbour, and never open to the public. So obviously, it's a very urgent matter to open it and to share it with the citizens. So indeed, the first project was to open urban farm, and the first step before we launched all the process was to make some soil studies. Throughout those soil studies, we discovered that the soils were polluted, both by the army users and also for the current human users. We had to reconsider the project of opening those green spaces, and we were quite concerned because speaking of pollution, in an urban space where there is a lot of inhabitants all around was quite an issue.
So yeah, it's quite incredible. I think the pollution by the army is something that we don't talk so much. And I was wondering, how did you communicate about this to the population?
After the shock, I would say, we decided to share it. We addressed the issue with researchers, specifically an ecological specialist, Isabelle Lafonschwab, who is on a daily basis running a project about pollution management in urban area based on nature-based solutions. So we came to her and shared the information we had with her and decided to share to the wide public this scientific information. And we also invite an artist to work on this issue. The artist is Louise Nicolon des Abbayes, and we are quite lucky because she had previously already worked on polluted soil. She is a ceramist, and her work deals with the different ways to create ceramics and to reflect on the content of soils in her ceramics. And it was very useful for us also because we are considering soils as a part of our heritage as well, our living heritage. Heritage is a succession of layers of history with traces on it. Pollution, human uses are part of those layers. And those traces reflect on the work of Louise Nicolon des Abbayes by creating some different ceramics, some different colors, different forms, and that was really, really great for us.
think that's really interesting. We talk a lot about how to communicate about the climate crisis now. And I think, using art in addition to the science is something that is, I think, more and more used and really needed to raise awareness and to maybe include more people into the topic. You already said that you couldn't do the urban farm, which was your initial plan. So what happened then? Like, what did you decide to do instead? What's the new plan? How did you adapt?
So what we decided is not to consider the soil as a waste. This was the first decision. The second one was to share the future of this project together with all the future users of it. And first, of course, our neighborhood, but also researchers, artists. And by deciding that, we identified for each community a sort of opinion leader with who we worked on launch events, during which we decided to share all the knowledge we had and then to create workshops, panel discussions during 4 months for each of those communities to propose a future for these spaces. At the end, we had much clearer vision of how we could open those spaces.
I'm curious to hear what surprised you the most from those conversations and workshops? Like, were they ideas from citizens or organizations that yourself didn't think about?
Well, three things surprised me the most. The first thing was the lack of knowledge of almost all the people we were attending either this launching event or the workshop afterwards, including public institutions. We are at the front line dealing with urban pollution. So they were very, very curious, and it was great, but also quite, surprising, I would say.
So they didn't know that the soil would be polluted.
They know about it a bit, but they have not a lot of clue about nature-based solutions. But so this was the first thing that surprised me. The other thing was basically the enthusiasm and the curiosity of everyone. And on the opposite side, everyone was quite happy to learn about those positive solutions. And it was a great way to leave this very anxious area of dealing with pollution management and to turn to positive options. And also, thanks to the work of Louise, the artist, to consider to have a new point of view on those soils, to consider those polluted soils also as living soils. So that was a great positive surprise. And then the last thing was that thanks to this huge curiosity, we had a lot of cross-fertilization. It was really surprising to see researchers pop up in citizen workshops, or on the opposite side, inhabitants wanting to learn more about how to deal with nature-based solutions, which were quite technical discussions.
I think this is very interesting as well, because at Climate-KIC we talk a lot about systems transformation, and you can't transform systems if you don't involve all stakeholders, right? It cannot be done just with the association or just with the policymakers or just with the scientists. Everyone needs to come together, and I think that's really interesting that projects like this one are already implementing this kind of approach.
Yes, the thing is that you have to accept that it takes time, because those processes are really time-consuming and also not immediately productive. This is something quite new in the methodology.
Yeah, we talk a lot about long-termism and how this project, they don't fit into the political timeline sometime, they take much more time and they're not very good you can't get re-elected or something by saying that a project is going to take, decades. But I think it's really interesting that we're starting to acknowledge that. I wanted to explore a bit more about the concrete solutions. So what nature-based solutions are going to be implemented in the green spaces in La Citadelle de Marseille?
So we have 2 different green spaces. Each of them is around 1.5 acre. There's one which is quite polluted, which is not going to be open soon. And the other one is supposed to be open next year. The other one is much less polluted, and so our decision has been to redesign this next to be open green space together with the researcher, the architect of the heritage building, and also students from agricultural high school. And so it's a participative process, and we are going to implement a list of chosen plants in this garden, chosen for their functionalities regarding pollution management and regarding climate change, as they will not need water, which is quite important in a Mediterranean area.
That's really interesting because for our listeners who don't know, Marseille is located in the south of France, on the French Mediterranean coast. And you mentioned before that the experts estimate that the south region is going to be impacted 4 times quicker than the rest of France regarding increased temperature, hence the need for plants who can survive in this climate. So can you give us the names of some of the plants that you're going to use?
Yeah, indeed, it's going to be quite tough. So, for instance, our decision, together with the researcher, the ecological researchers, Isabelle Lafonchobe, we chose endemic plants, which are locally produced. It guarantees us basically that those plants have the same DNA as local other plants, and it protects the biodiversity locally. So one of them are, for instance, Euphorbia carencias, which is Euphorbia des Garrigues. We also have Thymus vulgaris, or Farigoule in French. Or we also have some Cistus salvifolius, or Cistus non-specialis, or Coronias.
I love that. The project's launch event was in September 2022, so that's 8 months ago, during the European Heritage Days, and the launch aimed to raise awareness of the importance of soil pollution and bring the community together. So now you are planning to reopen the green spaces to the public, and I think you are already doing guided tours. So can you tell us a little bit about what's happening now already, and how do you see the spaces being open to the public and citizens enjoying the spaces in the future?
In 12 months, next May 2024, indeed we have a small event happening in Marseille next year, which is the Olympic Games. We will welcome the Olympic flame in France through the old harbor of Marseille. So we would like to be ready for this event. So we plan to plant the vegetation next autumn, and it will have started the growing for the opening. It will not be finished, obviously, but the process will be on, and we will be able to discuss about that and to share it with the people and visitors. Indeed, we have already guided tours. Some of them, specifically for schools, are designed on a biodiversity approach. We propose different workshops to rediscover biodiversity and our living spaces. And together with the redesign of the gardens, we are preparing a mediation parcours for the public. We also have in mind a small object to reflect on the different layers of the soil, to explain why we should take care of it, why even if it's slightly polluted, there's no problem now with the human health, because we have dealt with that, but they need to respect the soil as well, and consider it as a living space for living people.
Given your experience with this project, I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to other organizations that are dealing with similar issues, and for those who are looking to bring widely different groups of people together to work on nature-based solutions? What did you learn from this experience that you would like to share?
What I learned is that you need to have an opinion leader for each community to be already quite involved and open to cross-fertilization. We were quite lucky because we ran into people. We were already in this process to try to find different people to share their knowledge or their intentions. First is to have a large communication plan, always orientated to the large audience and, of course, the involvement of an artist from the starting point of this process has been a huge advantage for us. Allowing her to be at the starting point, going through all the different processes, she attended a lot of workshops as well, allowed us to engage almost everybody and to give them also a goal, which was the final event of the Women's Space project, basically the opening of the artists at the end of the process, during which we met on a very informal way, all the different members of the workshops. And we were happy to see that pollution was not so concerning anymore.
Thank you so much, Mathilde, for sharing all of this. I think this is a very exciting project. We will keep in touch and share with everyone. Yeah, we'll come back to you maybe next year in May. We can share some pictures of the launch. And in the meantime, good luck. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you very much, Anne-Sophie. Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening. That was the final episode from our series focused on the new European Bauhaus initiative. So please follow us on Spotify, give us 5 stars wherever you listen your podcasts, and share the episodes with your friends and your colleagues. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Climate-KIC. That's Climate-KIC. Get in touch with us with any comments or any ideas at media@climatekic.org. This episode was produced by Barbara Mendes George. We'll be back soon with new episodes. Bye!